Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to try something a little different. My wife and I came up with this idea called My Wife Picks a Criterion. And the idea is that once a week, once a month, we're not really sure right now, she's going to go to the Criterion shelf that I have and pick a Criterion that I may have seen or I may not have seen. We're going to watch it together and then we're going to talk to you about it. So we started this last week, and the first title that we picked is David Lynch, The Art Life, which is a movie from 2016. It's 88 minutes. It is Criterion Collection spine number 895. And we were thinking too, we had a lot of thoughts about this actually. We were thinking about doing this as a video, and then we decided to do just the audio for right now. But you can leave us a comment below if you'd like to see a video sometime. Maybe we can do that. But for right now, I think we're just going to leave it as an audio, kind of a podcast format. And we're going to talk about the film. Certainly, if you have ideas or thoughts about this film, leave us a comment below. We'd love to hear what you think about it. The other thing I wanted to say, too, is my wife, Jessi, who I'm going to introduce here in a moment, is she edits all the videos. And she does such a great job at it. It's really, I'm just really amazed at it because I'm kind of the idea guy, and she's more the editor, technical resource for the channel. But although she does, I mean, she's an overall producer, basically. She gives ideas and she does the editing, and she edits out all my horrible mistakes that I make on videos and things like that. So I'm really thankful to her. Jessi, welcome to the podcast. I should say, too, before you speak or anything, I was going to say that you were also in a video that's on the channel, which is we used to go to Barnes & Noble before the pandemic. We used to go more often, and you're in one of the first videos. So welcome to this, whatever we're doing here.
Hello, hi, thank you. Yes, I am Jessi, and I am in exactly one video at this time.
Right. So, and we may do more of those. Maybe when the pandemic gets a little bit better, we have no idea. But we love to go to Barnes and Noble. Jessi's a big book fan. I love movies, and so we both like to go to the store to see what we can find there.
Yeah.
But we just haven't had a chance to do that. So today, anyway, we're going to talk about, you picked this movie, David Lynch, The Art Life, which I've seen many, many times, by the way, but I watched it again with you, and we actually watched the supplement with the director, John Nguyen. And so let's kind of open it up with, what did you think about the film?
Well, I think maybe even before that, I should talk about why I picked the film.
Yeah.
Since I am picking from the shelf. And I picked this one because I had seen parts of it, because you watch it frequently. I had never watched it from beginning to end, and I really want to get back into Twin Peaks, and so I was hoping that this might get us into appreciating his art and his films and get us back into the show.
Right. I have a couple videos on the channel for Twin Peaks, and for whatever reason, we just got involved in the holidays and holiday movies and things like that, and we haven't had a chance to really get back to it. So we will be getting back to it. This is, as you said, this is one of my favorite films, and I probably watch it 2 or 3 times a year. So frankly, I was kind of surprised that you picked this one. But we do like David Lynch. We watch his weather reports on YouTube a lot, which is just like a 2-minute weather report from Los Angeles. If you haven't seen that, it's really, really good. He basically just gives the weather for Los Angeles and a couple of thoughts that he has.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I think we're going to go through the movie and kind of give our impressions of it. But just in general, Did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you think about it?
In general, I did like it. I like the juxtaposition of like him making art and them talking about his life and a little bit about his film at the end. And I don't know, I liked seeing him, like for most of the film he's kind of just sitting there, but I really liked kind of seeing him in his element, seeing him sitting, working on projects, and I really liked, I had taken some notes, but I really liked that his art reminded me a lot of getting your hands dirty. I felt like he was kind of working in the garden almost, like, he was really interacting with his, what is it? I don't know.
His paintings and
he was working
sculpting.
with his, the sculpting, and there was a lot of shots of his hands and him just working with things. And I liked seeing him actively working and then actively sitting, waiting for something maybe.
Yeah, I like how the movie, to me, the movie is very meditative in that way too. And it's an art film in itself, which I think when we were watching the supplement with the director, he was saying that he wanted to focus on the the approach to art that David Lynch has, not so much his films, right? And so I think even in the beginning they were thinking of not using any of his films, even though they talk about Eraserhead near the end of the movie. But they didn't really get into his full film career, which I thought was really interesting too, just to understand his process and how much he loves to be an artist and a sculptor and a painter. And, you know, he talks about a time when he, I think, got his first apartment in Boston, and he used to just sit in his apartment, and that's all he did. And I think he talks about art in a way where he says life should be, you get up, you smoke cigarettes, you drink coffee, and you paint. That's basically one of the things that he mentioned in the movie. Now, I don't smoke cigarettes, I don't drink coffee anymore, but I love the idea. I love the idea that you can kind of get up and spend your day creating all day. I think that's what he really loves the most. I was going to say also, I feel like this film, I was going to do a video about this, but I feel like this film is a good introduction to David Lynch. Some people have real problems with David Lynch as far as his movies and the fact that there's, you know, they're, in many ways, there can be awkward scenes or scenes you don't really understand or scenes that are part of a puzzle. But I think with this film, you really get to know him a little bit more as a person and as someone who really thinks a lot about art. I mean, that's what I got from the movie, or one of the things I got from it. Yeah,
I think that it does really help you understand him, but I don't know that I would recommend it. Like, if you wanted to get into David Lynch, I think it's really it's a good supplement, but it doesn't make me want to watch all his films in a way that, like, maybe watching a documentary about someone else might. So I think that it gives you a good feel of what his films are like, definitely. But I don't know that it, as much as I wanted to watch it so that I could watch Twin Peaks, after already seeing Twin Peaks, it gets me interested because I can remember how it feels and I want that feeling back. But I don't know that it doesn't get me jazzed to, you know, like sometimes if you watch like an action movie or something, you're like, oh, I need to see all of those. Like if you watch a James Bond film, you want to watch all of the James Bond films. This didn't get me feeling that revved up, but I think I got the overall atmosphere. If you want to go spend some time in the David Lynch world, this is a good film to watch.
This is the way to do it. Yeah, I do agree with you there. I guess having seen a lot of his work and coming back to this film, I wish that this film had been around years ago, because I think my first exposure to David Lynch might have been Twin Peaks, I think, when it was originally on TV, which was interesting, but it was also a very weird show to someone who's new, or something new on television after you've been watching, you know, sitcoms and other just regular procedural dramas. But I feel like coming back to this film, I definitely understand a little bit more of what he was going for. But this is an interesting discussion too, and I might still make a video about this because I'm not sure Eraserhead's a good place to start either. Eraserhead is a very strange film. A lot of his early films are strange, and I say strange in a good way. Yeah. They're very interesting art films, but if you were just to see those, you might be put off by David Lynch. I don't know, but so I think that's a good point. Maybe Twin Peaks was the most accessible, or at least that's where I was introduced to him. And then you and I have shared watching Twin Peaks together, so we know that the episodes that David Lynch directs are definitely very unique. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I think that this idea of how do you start watching David Lynch is kind of, it reminds me a lot of his philosophy and how you approach art, in that I read his book, Catching a Big Fish, or Catching the Big Fish or something, and it's about how you kind of have to, you know, when you're fishing, you have to show up to the river, right? You have to put your line in the water and you kind of have to wait. And I feel like with David Lynch's films and all his creations, you kind of have to be ready to show up to the David Lynch river and put your line in and say, okay, what am I going to experience here? You can't really expect anything going into his creations, because they are very different and not what one might expect. And so you have to kind of just, you know, say, okay, I'm going to get into David Lynch now and start somewhere, and then you'll either like it or you won't.
Yeah, I really like that book, by the way. I mean, I read it, I think before. If you haven't picked up that book, it's really good. The chapters are pretty short, pretty easy to get through. Yeah, I feel like also Lynch kind of teaches you to train yourself to be a receiver of ideas. Yeah. So if you put yourself in that mindset, you might, you know, receive ideas, let's say, from the universe or from some other place, which I think he really believes in, and I believe in too. I think that's a good way to do it. A lot of people don't have maybe the patience to get as quiet as David Lynch gets in order to receive these things. some of the ideas may not be what you would expect either. I think if you look at some of his painting and art, I believe it's very much from his heart and soul. I mean, it's from experiences in his life. I think in the movie The Art Life too, they a lot of his artwork is displayed, which you may not have seen before. And it's, in many cases can be a little jarring, I feel like, right? It's very graphic in many ways.
Yeah, it's very strange. But I get the feeling from seeing his art in the film that, I mean, maybe it's just the way the film is set up, but he doesn't have that typical like angry artist like no, this is wrong. Everything feels like it's just the way it's supposed to be, and that maybe he doesn't make so many mistakes, or if he does make a mistake, he works with it. But yeah, his art is very, very odd. But I get a sense that it's also strictly for himself. Like there's a lot of shots where he's almost using like a wet piece of paper and a grease pencil. And he would put a lot of grease on the, or ink on the page, and then he would wipe it away. And it was hard to tell if that was intentional, or if he made a mistake and started over, or if that was the way he wanted it to be, or if he was just playing with the medium to see what happens when you put these two things together.
Yeah, I think for him, the experience of art is a very tactile thing too, where sometimes, I think as you even mentioned, sometimes he's wearing gloves and sometimes he's not with some of these materials.
Yeah.
He's working with pretty unique materials as well, paint, water, wood in many cases, right? I like a lot of the scenes too where there's one scene I'm recalling where he's in a wood shop where they show him put his glasses down on this, saw basically, and the camera stays on the glasses, or the camera will stay on his hands. One of the things that I really love about Lynch is I love to watch his hands. I feel like his hands are so expressive. If you've ever seen interviews with David Lynch, he's always moving his hands like this, kind of on the side. I'm doing a gesture when you can't even see me. But he basically holds his hands up to the side of his face and moves all of his fingers while he's talking. He's very expressive that way. And I think in the movie you see a lot of that. You see his hands, like his hands behind his back, or his hands in a specific place. So the filmmaker knows that that's important. That's an important way that he communicates. And you were even noticing things like the yellow watch that's around his hand, and some things that maybe we haven't noticed about Lynch before, because I've only seen him in interviews or seen him talk specifically about films. But I feel like that was a unique part of this movie also in the way that they filmed it. The director says in the commentary that, David Lynch is a very private person. He doesn't let people into his life very often. He had a friend basically that was living with him that would sometimes, a few sequences in the movie were shot on an iPhone because that's all they had. They didn't have a chance to run back to the room. Sometimes they would call and say, we only have 30 minutes. You have to run up there with whatever gear you have and take, some, to film what he's doing. So, but I don't know if you noticed anything else in the movie that was like that, where they just kind of had a shot. There's some shots of rain that I thought are very beautiful. Yeah. So I don't know if you noticed.
There was one stuck out to me. He's smoking a cigarette, and there's like almost like an unnatural amount of smoke comes out. Like, when a person smokes, there's a certain amount of exhalation that fills the air. But the way the light was coming through the top of his workspace, it just filled the whole shot, and it just looked odd, almost like it was edited, but it probably wasn't edited to add more smoke. And it stuck out to me his neutral wardrobe. He wears like a dark tan pair of pants and like a black long sleeve shirt for almost the whole film. He's a very neutral, uniform kind of guy, but it stuck out to me that his watch was medium to bright yellow. And I just thought that it was an interesting choice because he clearly makes decisions about what he wears, and in other interviews, he's very specific. Like when you think of David Lynch, you see his outfit is always pretty much the same. And so choosing a yellow watch that they don't even talk about, they don't talk about it at all. There's no mention of this very odd thing that sticks out, or like the blue gloves that he wears stick out because his wardrobe is so neutral.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting too how the director said they shot 1,000 hours of film, which this movie is only 88 minutes long. I wish it was longer. I wish there were more, supplements on it, but it seems to be very tightly edited as well, right? With, these various moments. But as you were saying, the scene with the cigarette, they talk about moments with the Sony camera that they shot it on catching these glints of light, in some cases, and really choosing those scenes that were really beautiful. So the film on its own, to me anyway, is very much, as I said before, an art film because of those elements, because they spend time making it more of an artistic type of movie rather than just a profile of David Lynch. It's a movie. Right. It's a beautiful movie in itself, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I think the supplement highlights a lot of that in that they said that they wanted Lynch to kind of drive the film. They didn't want to put their own ego or their own spin on anything. So I think that's why this film feels like a Lynch film, like almost like he directed it, because in some ways he did, because they wanted it to be about him. And in the supplement, they also mentioned that they made... Were they the ones that made the Lynch film before this?
They talk about this other movie called Lynch 1, which is, I'm not sure if they did, but let us know in the comments below. I do have that movie as well, and I haven't seen it in a while, but that deals more with his film career, so I'm not sure how much they were involved in it, but anyway, that's a good point.
Well, and I was thinking that this film is really great to highlight his beginning life, and calling it The Art Life was David Lynch's idea, but I like that idea because it's almost like he did have two lives. He had this life where he was trying to be an artist and a painter, and he loved painting, and it didn't really work out as a career, and then it's almost like he goes into like the film life or the filmmaker's life, where after this film, which stops at Eraserhead because it's a student film, he goes on to have a career as a filmmaker. So it'd be interesting to see almost like a second film or third film to this that talks about those things in a similar style. Like, it'd be interesting to see him in his home environment talking about his film career.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen Lynch 1 in a long time, but I feel like they do kind of go over some of his other films, and they show him on the set and things like that, building sets and things. But that's a good one to check out as well. The other thing I like about this film too is the music. Now, they use some of David Lynch's music in the movie, a couple of things. They also, the director talks about kind of a minimal use of music where it's a little bit more playful in the beginning when he's talking about his childhood, and then when he goes to Philadelphia, which is a big part of his transition, the music is much more industrial and much more abrasive, I feel like, because that was his experience, I think, in Philadelphia, which he talks about quite a bit, of it being a place of fear, but also a place of inspiration that eventually got him to go to California and, begin, to make some films. But I thought that was interesting too. I love the music. I love the minimal use of music and the attention that it, was paid to the sound design. I feel like that is a really important part of the movie as well.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, like he's talking about going over the bridge to Philadelphia, and there's almost like a train sound in a way. Like there's like a rhythm that's like moving it forward while he's talking. But they said that they had made an intentional decision to make sure that the music wasn't overpowering, because it could go beyond accenting the film and kind of be too intense almost. But yeah, I don't think I noticed the sounds on their own, but I think it just played into part of the whole watching experience.
Yeah. Well, even the director said too that they had tremendous access to David Lynch's photographs and his home movies and things like that, and I think they said they only used one photograph that wasn't from, or one or two photographs that were not from him, which I thought made the film very personal too, because they're not interviewing other people. It's basically just focusing on David Lynch, right? Yeah. They're not interviewing people about Lynch, which I think makes this very unique and not like a profile type movie, because it's all about him, right? And many times, I mean, just like we're sitting here today, he's sitting in front of a microphone relaying some things.
Oh, yeah, just like in the corner of like a garage or something,
Right, and, just amazing access to the studio that's out of his house where he works as an artist also. So, for me, like I said before, I really love this film. I watch it 2 or 3 times a year, mostly for inspiration for myself. I feel like that's a really good thing. Whatever you happen to do, you don't drink coffee or smoke cigarettes, but if you get up and create every day, I feel like that's a good thing. I feel like that's something you and I are trying to do every day now too, is get up and think about the things we would like to create, especially during this pandemic, especially during a time when lots of people are at home. Yeah. You've got to think of creative ways to keep yourself moving, keep your spirits up, and I feel like this movie in particular, for me, was very inspirational. So I don't know if you have any final thoughts on the film. I think we're coming in on about maybe 20 minutes here. We're not sure how long these are going to be, too, by the way, but I guess if we get into, expansive discussion on things, maybe they'll be a little bit longer, but this is something that we're trying. So I don't know if you have any final thoughts about the film. I obviously love the film. I'm happy that you picked it because it gave me a chance to watch it again, which is a lot of fun. But I'm wondering, on a first watch for you, after having seen clips, would you recommend this film to other people? What did you think about it overall? Is it, I love this film, it's the best film I've ever seen, or it's an okay movie?
I think overall it's a good film. It's like a solid 4 out of 5. I'm not eager to watch it again for whatever reason. I think maybe because it left me wanting to, I wrote down in my notes that I need to sit more and look at the screen less and let myself think. And I think it's interesting that we watched this film in 2 sittings. We watched the first, hour and 15 minutes or so, and then the last half an hour on a different day. And after watching it, I don't know if it's just coincidence or not, but I was extremely bored the next day, just in general. I was kind of antsy. I was just, I feel like I need to do something, but I'm not sure what. And I think that that's kind of what he's maybe getting to the audience, is that you need to spend more time being bored, is what I felt. He's looking at a screen in some of the film, but for the most part, he's just sitting and looking at maybe the medium he's going to use, or looking at nature. And so my lasting impression was that I need to do more sitting and thinking and less consuming. I also was thinking about art supplies myself and what would be interesting to me to try and work on as a creative person, because I really got the feeling from him that it's all, just do this for yourself. He wasn't trying to make paintings to sell to people. He wasn't trying to be in a gallery. He was just trying to make it as an artist, making the art he felt he was supposed to make, even though he said himself that his art isn't very good. And so I like that idea of just creating to create, and whatever comes out, and you can't get good at it if you don't try it, if you don't start it. So I think that overall I would recommend this to people if they're interested in David Lynch. They don't really know much. I don't think that I would say, oh, you need to watch this first because it'll get you to want to do this or that. But I think it gives a lot of good insight into how he works, how he thinks, what happened, what his life was like. And yeah, I think if you're a creative person, if you're an artist, or if you just like making things on any level, it's an interesting study of how his past influences his art.
Yeah, I like what you said about sitting and thinking too. I feel like that's something that really helps to, as I said in the beginning, make yourself more of a receiver of ideas. And so, I love this film, and we didn't really talk about any kind of rating before. 4 out of 5 is great. I would say 5 out of 5 for me if we're going on the 5 scale. But this movie is an inspiration for me. I really watch it to become inspired myself, to remind myself of all the things that you mentioned, which is we need to spend more time sitting and thinking and letting the ideas come rather than forcing them or getting involved in other narratives on Twitter or Facebook or other things that are going on. Spending more time creating ourselves, and creating could be cooking, it doesn't have to be sculpting. It could be cooking, it could be gardening, it could be anything, but to really kind of get yourself more engaged in life, which I feel like Lynch does very well. So I'm really happy we watched this. I love this feature that we're going to, be starting. Again, we don't know if we're going to do this once a week, once a month, whenever time permits. We don't know, but we had a fun time today talking about David Lynch, The Art Life, which is a Criterion Collection release. It is, again, spine number 895. I suppose we should have said in the beginning that we were going to spoil this movie. We'll have to maybe put something in the description to say that. But let us know in the comments below if you've seen this movie and what you thought of it. If you haven't seen it or have interest in it, I do agree with what you said. Maybe it's not a film to start with, but I definitely appreciate it after seeing Twin Peaks and after seeing Elephant Man and Eraserhead and some of the other films. This movie made a lot of sense to me and really resonated just as an art film itself. So I want to say also thanks for listening today. I was going to say thanks for watching, but you're really just watching a thumbnail at this point.
Yeah.
But we may be doing more of these. We're again, as you know from the channel, I'm very excited about film. There's things you and I watch together that I don't really talk about on the channel too much, other than maybe in a haul video.
Yeah. Well, and we also thought that maybe me picking the Criterion films would make give people an idea of how to approach Criterion films, because a lot of times they are more artistic films, or there's a certain idea people have about Criterion, and so the idea of someone who I appreciate film, but it's not my hobby. I did not, come into our relationship with a lot of films in my collection. So I think we give an interesting approach to someone who really enjoys the collection and the type of movies they put in the collection, and someone who appreciates them but maybe doesn't know as much about the films.
Right, and this also gives you another way to just appreciate your own collection, too. Maybe you're not spending anything right now, or maybe you have a series of movies and you want to take another look at them. This is just another way for me to, as a film lover and a film viewer over many years, look at my Criterion collection in a different way by films that you pick.
Yeah.
And, I may have certain films that I'm resonating with, but I'm very interested to know what you're interested in, too. So, again, thanks so much for listening, watching, commenting. Leave us a comment below. Ask us a question. I will say, too, I'm planning on doing an Ask Me Anything live on Sunday, the 31st of January at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. So you can please join me for that. You can leave a question below in this video if you like, or you can, I also put a little questionnaire, well, not a questionnaire, but I put a little call out for questions on Twitter. Also, if you follow me on Twitter, all of my social media links will be listed in the description. Again, thanks so much for listening today, and I sincerely hope everyone is safe and well, and we'll talk to you soon.